I'm a husband. I'm a father.
I'm a sister.
I'm a son. I'm a brother.
I'm a daughter. I'm a sister.
I'm a referee.
I'm a referee.
I am a referee.
I'm a referee.
Now Worrell has a good cutback from him. He'll fire one, and that's going to go in! Now he'll fire one now from distance, and that is in! Creating some havoc. This ball put in. Oh, look at this opportunity. That's missed. Oh, it's Stone!
Granite City Food and Brewery has 2 Michigan locations in Troy and Northville. Serves made-from-scratch food, brews in-house beer, and even has brunch every Sunday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. To learn more about their daily specials or to book a private party, visit gcfb.com. Make sure you head over to Granite City in Northville at the corner of 7 Mile and Haggerty, or the Troy location at 16 Mile and I-75.
Our mission is to help players take their game to the next level and reach their potential. Not only do we help develop fundamental technical skills such as ball control in tight spaces with different surfaces, dribbling at speed and changing direction, using a variety of 1v1 skills to create space, receiving on a half turn, hook turn, and out of the air, finishing off the dribbling, one-touch, volleys, and headers. We help players get comfortable performing these skills at game speed, with pressure, and with both their dominant and non-dominant foot. In addition, we help players with their speed of play, awareness of space, defenders and teammates, and also dominate with our off-the-ball movement. We offer a variety of services such as one-on-ones, small groups, large groups, as well as team sessions. We have an experienced coaching staff that is professional, friendly, patient, while still holding players to high standards and holding them accountable. No matter what level you're at as a player, I'm confident we can help you get better. Over the past 3 years, we've built one of the best soccer-specific training facilities in the country and developed one of the most detail-oriented programs to help out players. Visit our website.
I watch soccer on the Michigan Soccer Network.
I watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
لا تنسون تتابعونا على Michigan Soccer Network.
I watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
I like to watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
I watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
Me gusta mirar fútbol en Michigan Soccer Network.
I watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
I love watching soccer on the Michigan Soccer Network.
Well, there it is. It's Happy Monday here, December the 12th. We're here live at our MSN studios in Shelby Township, Michigan. My name's Jonathan Turner, and I'm alongside Steve Besk here, my broadcast partner, that we, most of our games, and here on MSN Weekly. We've done this a lot, Steve. Dan Stickrad not feeling well tonight, so he'll be, he's at home on the mend. So we wish you well there, Dan. You've been a big part of MSN Weekly and this network here for a number of weeks here and months, and we wish you the best of health here. Here's recovering at home. So a lot to talk about here tonight, Steve. A lot's been going on in the world of soccer. As you know, World Cup we're down to the final 4 teams, which is great. We've also I had a chance yesterday to head over to the Detroit Lions game, watch them win against Minnesota Vikings, 5-1 in the last 6 games. We'll talk about that. That has nothing to do with soccer, but
nothing whatsoever.
Nothing whatsoever. But we figured, why not? What the heck, right? We'll also dive into Gio Reyna. Some news coming out in regards to that. Me and you have had some thoughts about that prior to the start of the show. Penalty shots. There have been a lot of penalty shootouts here in this World Cup. I got some things I have some questions I want to ask in regards to this. And I'm sure you at home watching, you probably have some thoughts about the penalty shootouts as well. Love to hear your thoughts on those. We'll talk about the goal of the year and how great that was. MSN goal, a save of the year now officially underway here as of this morning. And then we'll talk about some soccer trivia, and we'll get out of here. So a good show here lined up here nonetheless today. And Steve, I want to dive into the Detroit Lions.
What a better place to start.
Again, I know it has nothing to do with soccer, but, when a team gets on a roll, and the Lions, who were not on a roll to start the season, more like they were on a downward spiral, and with shovels digging themselves into a very large hole, have now found their way to 6-7 after starting the season 1-6. Now, again, 6-7, winning 5 of their last 6 games. And to be fair, looking at historically here, the Lions have scored 25 points or more 5 consecutive games in a row. That is the first time since 1954.
Yeah, quite impressive. And when a team has confidence and believes in themselves, you can get on a roll. And it's not to take away that they don't have any talent whatsoever. Because I think they are a talented team, but I think they found a way to come together. And Dan Campbell has got them playing at a ridiculous level of belief right now that I don't think there's a team in the league that wants to play the Lions week in, week out. And I can't remember a time in my lifetime when you could say that we were a feared team, and very much like, the way that Dan Campbell has rallied his team into believing that they can win, very similarly in the World Cup, a team like Morocco has made their way into that Final Four in off that type of similar type belief, John.
Yeah, no question. And it's something that so if you don't know, I went to the Lions game yesterday, first time that I've gone to a Lions game in the better part of almost 2 decades. I think the last time I went to a game was back in 2004. I went to Lions pretty regularly during my childhood. Had a chance to go to a lot of the Thanksgiving Day games that took place over at the Silverdome. And so this was my first time. My wife bought the tickets for my birthday, and it was just a really cool thing. She herself had never been to a professional football game either, so yesterday she had a chance, to enjoy that. I know why I like enjoying watching the games from home. Right. There is something about being in a crowd of people, all screaming and yelling, and it's great. But I much rather be at home, and enjoying, my couch, the big screen TV right in front of me, controlling the volume. If I have to go to the bathroom, I can hit pause. There's replays, all the things. So I'm curious for you, who are tuning in here tonight. When it comes to sporting events, it doesn't have to be football, but whether you watch, you're a soccer fan, a baseball, it doesn't matter. Would you rather watch that game at home, or would you rather watch the game, in person?
Well, I think when we were chatting about this, beforehand, the home experience is so great now. Like you mentioned, the quality of the televisions that you have at your own disposal, the ability to be able to pause and grab drinks and snacks and use the restroom when necessary. And but then it's also, the environment obviously is that reason that you go to sporting events, and that energy that you feel from a crowd. I've been lucky enough to be at a Tiger playoff game back in 2006 when they first cracked that long streak of not being not being in the playoffs, and being at Comerica Park with that kind of energy is something that you can't describe to people, and it's not something you can just feel going to any other baseball game throughout a regular season. Similarly, an energy that you get down at a Detroit City game down at Keyworth is something that you just can't match, that you can't pull off the screen. I watch DCFC games sometimes on streams and on the TV because out reffing or can't make it to a game, it's great to be able to watch it, but there's nothing like a DCFC game down at Keyworth.
Yeah.
And so I think there's and what we were chatting about was that environment, and there is something to be said about, let's just say, I mean, the NFL product in general has a fan base that there's a portion of the fans. Let's not try to paint all the fans here. Right, there is a portion of fans that go to these games and act a fool. And it's whether they're inebriated with the amount of adult sodas they've consumed, or the language that they just feel that they can yell out at any point because they paid their money for their seat. And listen, I understand the passion and the frustration. And if I were to be inside the Emirates watching Arsenal, I'm sure there'd be plenty of times if I was there on a regular basis that I'd be screaming up and down and yelling some things that I shouldn't. But we also have to think about this as it's not exactly an entirely family environment, but there are plenty of children that are at these games, and your experience where you're sometimes dealing with guys and whether it's dropping things and the language going on, it's hard to reason with the price of admission when that is what you're going to have to deal with as your experience. And so I think there's a balance, and I think there's some events that you put up with it or you pay the money because you know what you're getting, and then there's some that unfortunately and I've talked to friends through fantasy that through all different NFL cities that it's the same everywhere you go. I'm sure there are cities that have more and less, but there's always going to be those crazy fans, and that's what I think deters some people away.
Yeah, I mean, we last year, if you're just joining us, my wife and I, we went to the Lions game yesterday at Ford Field, and my first time going to Lions game in almost 20 years. And, we were smack dab between in front of us, in the front 2 rows in front of us, we're Minnesota Vikings fans. To the left of my wife were 2 Minnesota Viking fans, and then behind us was a Detroit Lion fan who had nothing nice to say about the Lions the entire game. So, and it was I got hit in the head. I got hit in the head I got hit in the head a bunch of times by a cell phone and some elbows. I'd rather sit at home and watch the game from home. But it was a fun experience. I mean, to each their own. But hey, if you've had a chance to go to a professional sporting event here recently and you enjoy it, by all means, continue to do so. I'm not a big fan of leaving the house anymore, but that's just me. Especially now that we spend a lot of our time, Steve, at stadiums. Especially now more recently than in the past. I spent a lot of times covering soccer games and I've been in a lot of stadiums over the last couple of years, and each environment has its own negatives and positives. But either way, I'd rather stay at home. But something I want to get into here, Gio Reyna. If you didn't know what happened here today and yesterday, we're going to talk about it. There's no hiding the fact that there were a lot of people. I don't care where you are in the equation. There were a lot of people that did not understand why Gio Reyna was not playing significant minutes in games here for the U.S. during the World Cup. It was a conversation piece, not only in game, but pre-game and post-game coverage and podcasts alike. There was this big cloud over why Gio Reyna wasn't playing, and there are some things that came out during, I would say during the, the second game. I think there's some questions there's maybe some not controversy, but some disconnect between what Greg Berhalter was saying and maybe what Gio Reyna was saying in regards to his playing time. Maybe it was due to an injury, but there was a disconnect in communication. And now come to find out what really happened. And again, this is not specifically from Greg Berhalter's mouth, but Gio Reyna went ahead and clarified it in his own way here, this morning. But either way, yesterday, Greg Berhalter was at an HOW Institute for Society Summit on Moral Leadership in New York. His comments were later published in a newsletter by CharterWorks. Now, this was last week. And it was in regards to one of the 26 players. So the statement here is, U.S. had a player that was clearly not meeting expectations both on and off the field. So it stood out. And as a staff, we sat together for hours deliberating what we were going to do with this player. We were ready to book a plane ticket home. That's how extreme it was. Now, again, since this whole thing aired, Reyna came out and published his own post. I had a chance to take a look at it here earlier today. I don't have it up in front of me, but he basically explained, hey, I was told before the tournament that I wasn't going to have significant playing time, that I was not going to be as integral as I thought. He admitted he didn't take it well. He said it took him a couple training sessions to kind of get his shit in order, so to speak, and it didn't go well. He ended up apologizing to the team. In his statement, that's what he said, apologized to the team, and then ultimately he was told it's all been forgiven and forgotten. And Berhalter has made it clear from the team standpoint. I've never heard this from Greg Berhalter, Steve, so I can't speak to it. I don't know. But when things happen for the team or inside the team, they keep it inside the team. Here's the problem. The team voted 13-12 to keep him here, to keep him in Qatar. I mean, that is a torn team if I've ever seen. I mean, this isn't like it's a sweeping 23-2, like, hey, you're staying, dude. No, there were some serious concerns about whether Gio should be in that locker room, should be on that run the rest of the way. I mean, we can talk about that's a split locker room. There's a lot of people that want him gone, and there's a lot of people that want him to stay. But it was so. We now know why Gio wasn't getting significant minutes at the World Cup for whatever you want to. I mean, and here's the thing: as a former coach myself, a player that is not bought in and having a hard time with a lack of something in regards to their performance can create a cancerous, environment for the rest of the team, and that's why they voted.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of sides to this, and I think there's a lot of angles. If Greg Berhalter wants to hold a player to a certain standard for his behavior off the pitch or in training, I think Greg Berhalter has every right to do so. And clearly there was behavior. We obviously don't know the details, but there was behavior from Gio Reyna that obviously caused enough of a rift that when it did come time to a vote, it wasn't overwhelming in one way or the other. It was a split camp.
Yeah,
almost as split as you can get with a.
I mean, if he had a vote, it would have been tied.
Right.
Well, no, I mean it would have been 14-12. My bad. But
so it couldn't have been a closer vote. So obviously there was, and as being part of teams in past, there are times when things with teammates arise, and sometimes things can have your ups and downs, but clearly there was enough behavior or some actions that were taken that clearly had that camp split. Those things are going to happen. Those things are going to happen in all levels. Doesn't excuse it, doesn't make it right, doesn't give him any reason to say that he should be playing or anything like that. However, I do have an issue with Berhalter even making the comments in general at this. So not wherever he was at, symposium, whatever was going on when the comments were made, despite not naming the player, the moment that you put that out there, someone's going to try to connect the dots and figure out who that player is. So now we've created a story out of something that, listen, if you handled it the way you did, and you've apparently stressed to the team that things are going to be kept internal, you've now broken that trust of the players. And even if he's in the right and Gio Reyna's behavior isn't warranted or is acceptable, that's fair. He's now created and casted this doubt amongst the players that are in this camp and that maybe did have his back, that are, can I trust my coach? And listen, maybe it's blowing in proportion one situation with a player and looking at it, maybe, that Berhalter doesn't have control of the locker room per se, but I have a hard time, if I was a player in that team, supporting Berhalter as coach moving forward, given that he's broken that trust. And again, it has nothing to do with it. And we talk all the time about how that the details and minute differences between players to become elite. And when you're talking about a room of 26 guys who are ultra competitive and at a very high level, especially now, with the talent that the U.S. have, we don't have one or two players that are above the rest. They're all very good. there's guys that are going to get playing time because the intangibles, and that intangible may be your attitude off the field and your behavior in training sessions. And I think that's important that we talk about all the time that, to high school players, to college players, to young players looking to make teams. And you wonder what goes through coaches when they select teams. I mean, John, I can imagine if you had two kids in a high school and they were, came down to that final roster spot and they're equally good players, and one kid was a cancer in the locker room or in a practice field, you're going to go with the other player. And that's just, because you want to create the environment. And so for that, I can defend Greg Berhalter in wanting to create the right situation and environment for his team to succeed at a World Cup. However, I also just think he could have gone about it and never spoke of it, and it comes out 10 years from now in a book he writes or a documentary, and now we can have that conversation. But to do it in the midst of potentially a contract extension or termination, we'll see where that goes, doesn't put him in the best foot forward if he really wants to keep this job.
I agree with that to an extent, but I think in a world today where every single day we're talking about the psychology of us as humans, emotional, mental health, all the things that we're talking about, and to put things in context, it wasn't like he was sitting on some talk show. He was talking at a conference called the Society on Moral Leadership. And granted, whether you're talking about a specific player, a group of players, based on everything we know, this was they used the word contentious topic why Reyna was not getting playing time. They say a subject of intense scrutiny is the best word to use here, or the words to be said. You got a player, and again, there's a reason why before this tournament, Reyna was being told he wasn't getting significant minutes. And it could be the fact that for the last 14 months, he had been struggling with injuries, right? Okay. There could be a number of reasons. One, youth, right? Let's be honest here. If we're talking about this team, and this team was a very, very young team to begin with, we start talking about the personnel and who's up there and playing and going to give you the best opportunity to win soccer games. A lot of times leadership comes in the form of experience, right? So, is there more experienced players who maybe are close to the same age? And by the way, age and experience do not necessarily go hand in hand, right? There are some players who have always played at a higher level, and they are younger than the player ahead of them. So they might have more experience at a higher level than the person who's the same age or maybe even older than them, depending upon where you play. So, like for example, Christian Pulisic, right? Been playing at a high level for a very long time. So his experience at his age will be that greater than a player who is playing, equal or lesser talent at a different level. Again, the reason why Reyna did not play, to be fair, probably goes more along towards the lines of the reaction that he had as a result of the fact that he wasn't going to get significant minutes. As a former coach, I can tell you this right now, that a player on that field, if you don't believe that they can do it, and there's a block, whatever that block might be, whether it be physical, whether it be mental, whatever it might be, if you cannot find a way to get the best out of that player, they're not going to play. And if you think that they're going to be a detriment to your team, they're not going to play. And I think Reyna being left off a World Cup squad would have been a fireable offense. You know what I mean? Like literally not putting him in the 26. Sure. I honestly think it's one of those things where, hey, Gio, we're only going to take you, need you. We're only going to put you in if we need you. So that's what's going to happen. But I can't not put him on that 26. I can't do it. I can't justify that because you are one of the top 5 players on Team USA, top 5 attackers. You are going to be on this squad, but you are not going to see significant minutes because, one, I can't trust you on that field right now, whatever it might be. Again, and think about this, you know what? You're 20 years old. You still got like 3 World Cups in you, 2 World Cups in you. So if I don't get you this time around, get the experience, take it all in, be a sponge, and we'll see you in 4 years.
Yeah, and I think you're 100% right in that there's only 11 spots starting. There's only a couple changes that happen from game 1 to game 2 to game 3, right? So there's not many spots.
No.
Do I personally think Gio Reyna has the talent to be out on the field and playing for the U.S. to give us the best chance? Yeah, I do. Obviously, we were not privy to any of this information, knowing what goes on behind the scenes, and that's why you always try to play Monday morning quarterback with the teams and what's going on and who should play and this, that, and the other, but we don't always know the full story. And yeah, I think there are moments, and there are you look at the careers of many players who were very talented players, and you say, how were they sitting on the bench at 19, 20 and not getting those minutes? And to your point, yeah, there are times where you just need to learn and you need to be a sponge, and it's not your time and it's not your moment. And clearly there was more going on than what we were made aware of. So I think, again, I think Greg has every justifiable reason to say, why he didn't play. I don't think there's anyone out there doubting, with this information coming out, why Gio Reyna's minutes lacked. I think everyone can understand.
They do now.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, now I think now they can. Of course, in the moment, and again, if the U.S. were scoring goals, if the U.S. had beat Wales 1-0, 2-0, if the U.S. had beat England, if the U.S. had we scoring goals or been more creative towards goal, I don't think we're having as much Gio Reyna talk. Well, the problem is we struggled so much in that attacking third that now if you're any broadcast face on talking about the World Cup, you're grasping at straws. What can the U.S. do? And you're looking at that roster going, well, who are the guys that we can bring in to make a difference? And Gio Reyna's name is sitting atop that list.
Of course.
So I mean, obviously, justifiably so, is why they were calling for him. But again, I think that's why you have to trust the manager, and I think that's where as if you're going to be a fan of the team, regardless of your individual thoughts on Greg Berhalter as a manager or not, he was the manager, so we can't change that, is that you have to have belief in what he's doing. And so, you got to put belief that Greg was doing what was best for what he thought was the team and the rest of the, moving forward to advance. And I can't blame him for that. And you know what? I think, you have to make hard decisions. We talk about it in sports all the time, whether it's football, basketball, and college kids make mistakes and things come up and they have to get suspended and those types of things. And sometimes coaches have to make tough decisions. And you know what? Sometimes it means you're going to lose a game, or sometimes it means you're not going to maybe have the best, but you have to set a lesson, because otherwise these guys will never learn. And if Reyna's behavior ultimately can transform from this, and he becomes a better player over the next 3 or 4 years because of it, then I think it did its job. And just it's a tough spot for Berhalter to comment, and that's where it's. But at the same time, Gio Reyna's behavior, warranted those types of things to happen.
Yeah, and if you're just joining us, we're talking about Gio Reyna, and I wouldn't say this bombshell, but we now have we can now look back and say, okay, there's a reason why Reyna wasn't playing, and I mean, I think for a good and. I think for a good chunk of the World Cup, and while the U.S. was in Qatar, there was this cloud about Reyna, and you get away from it. And you're right, he is in contract negotiations, and Greg Berhalter, he is talking about his next contract. That is a whole conversation, whether he's going to be returning or not is yet to be decided. But there's a lot of people out there, including you, Steve, and myself, that up until a couple days ago, there was a lot of question about the Reyna conversation, and if in fact what took place is true, which Team USA, the number of players have talked about, there was a vote, there was this big split. Obviously, Gio Reyna came out today and in his statement apologized, or if it was today or when the statement came out, but in itself apologized for his behavior and his reaction to not being selected as an integral part of this roster. Rightfully so, he shouldn't have been on the pitch. I mean, like I mentioned, there were some players, during the course of this tournament, like Ronaldo being one of them, that was benched because he was not happy with his coach. Arguably one of the best players in the world at this sport, and he did not start in that quarterfinal match, in the Sweet 16 or the round of 16. He did not start in that match, all because he threw a temper tantrum with his head coach.
Yeah, and I think a player of Ronaldo's stature has maybe a little bit of a different argument, or maybe feels that he is deserved, or should at least be given that conversation to fight or give his reasons why he believes he should start, and that's fair. I think, I mean, if we're looking down at it, as good as Ronaldo is and has been, he's not in top form. He's an older player that realistically, sure, is he still a top 15, 20 player in the world? Absolutely he is, but he's not 1A, 1B with Lionel Messi anymore. And so, Portugal had a lot of other options that, attacking options were playing well. But, to your point, if that behavior is the same reason that he also, is no longer with Manchester United, is, he came out and did an interview and lashed out against his own team. And to be honest, that's, again, terrible behavior from a teammate. And Manchester United said, we don't want anything to do with it, and cut ties and immediately just said, we'll pay your wages and whatever. We'll pay you to walk away and stop, being associated with the club. And I mean, he's tarnishing his own legacy, and that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, I think there are coaches who are you have to make tough decisions, and the Portugal manager made a tough decision, and did it cost them in their game against Morocco? I don't know. They created chances as we're going to get in here to those World Cup semifinals, but I think it's a tough job to be a manager of a national team at a World Cup. It's not an easy job. You've got a lot of things to obviously take into account, and I think it reemphasizes, though, I think to the youth, to the young players out there that that are listening and watching to this, that those little things that may seem insignificant at the time really can be huge when it comes to those playing times and those types of things, because coaches really do take into consideration not just if you can score 5 goals or if you can make a good pass. It's the behavior off the pitch and on the pitch, because it's creating that environment.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And again, I think that just to piggyback on this before we step aside, for a commercial, I think that, there's something said about how you can perform on the field, but it's also something said about how you are as a teammate and how you interact with your fellow man, so to speak. There's no question that since Ronaldo lost his child here, a year ago, that it's been a struggle for him, right? We all deal with loss and adversity in different ways, and he's trying to find his way along that path. Been very successful. And I'm not comparing Reina to Ronaldo. That's an unfair comparison, right? I'm just showing that behavior and how you interact with your team, your coaches, will into 2022 have, I think, more of an impact than it did in 1999, 2010, and whatever. Right? I just think that where we are today, I don't think that superpower player with their skill set and their talent is going to outweigh their behavior. I think it did in the past. I think you could get away with that stuff. The Dennis Rodmans of our generation are gone.
I still think it exists to a small degree. You find it slightly in the NBA, a little bit more in the NFL, and it does exist. But in the world game, it's just less and less, especially in and around the national team in the World Cup.
Well, and I think, too, because of the way the talent is, right? I mean, the talent pools and the way talent has been cultivated over the years, with coaching getting better and access to better training, all countries across this world have found a way to bridge the gap between, their top player and then that next player below them, right? And that's the difference maker, because if you can find a way to have, 8 Neymars on your team, or Neymar-like players on your team, you don't need a Ronaldo.
Exactly, and that's the thing is that gap is that if Gio, like I was saying, if Gio Reyna was playing for a smaller country, Lebanon, for example, right? His behavior may have been overlooked, still may have been scolded, may have been disciplined to a point, but he's still going to play. Because he's the best, by far and away their best player, and they need him to even compete.
Yep.
But he's not. He's playing for the U.S., and he's got 20 other teammates that are right there at that skill level that you take him out, and not that he's completely interchangeable, but he's replaceable.
Yeah. No question. No question at all. Well, we're going to step aside here for a break. Before we do, we're going to hear from about Fran Murphy Law.
Fran Murphy Law. Since no two cases are ever the same, at Fran Murphy Law, we provide personalized solutions to your legal problems. We have years of experience with complex civil, criminal, and personal injury cases, and are privileged to serve clients across Southeast Michigan. Call or text us now at 248-763-4111.
We'll be right back. And he'll take a shot, and then a diving save. Oh, then both goals so far. A fire one, and that's a wonderful save. They'll put this one in. He'll just shoot it. Look at that. Wow. Gracioso comes up with a save. Well, ball goes to Schaefer. He gets his third chance, and right again at Gums.
What a save from Gum.
Billow steps up, and the save by Hildebrandt, and the Troy. And now here comes an opportunity. Davidson comes up with the save, and it's cleared away. Welcome you back here into our Shelby Township studios here in MSN studios in Shelby Township, Michigan. My name is Jonathan Turner alongside Steve Besk. It's MSN Weekly, our weekly show. We cover all things soccer here in the state of Michigan. We're obviously just talked about Gio Reyna and what happened with Team USA. But, let's make our move here, our transition now, Steve, into the World Cup semifinals. I'll tell you, the World Cup, the quarterfinals, the round of 16, very interesting. It's going to lead into our conversation about penalty shots here when we get back from our next break. But, Argentina, Croatia. Croatia was there in 2018 in the finals. They have a chance to make their way back again. And to be fair, if Morocco can beat France, a very interesting final it would be.
Well, the four remaining teams and the potential that we have for our, whoever comes out is going to be quite epic. Like you said, we'll either have Argentina with their first title in 30 plus years, and Messi getting that elusive World Cup title. Croatia would be, the smallest nation, first ever for them to win a World Cup. Luka Modric, a fantastic footballer with, quite the supporting cast as well there with Croatia. And then on the other side, potentially the first time we'd have a repeat winner in a very, very long time. If France could go back to back, they've probably been the most consistent squad of the four left with the way they've been playing all tournament. And then Morocco, first African nation to become a semifinalist, which is an impressive feat in itself. And their great run, potentially could continue. And if they were obviously to make the final, and what that potential could be to have a team like that, hoist the World Cup. At this point, with the U.S. gone, as much as we talked about a few weeks ago, I was rooting for Argentina. I'm a Messi fan. There's no hiding that. And I would love to see Argentina win, but if they don't, to me, go Morocco. It's been a wonderful story, and it's a whole different conversation. But they have the highest number of players who are technically not Moroccan born, and or how the citizenship and how they can duel, and a whole different conversation. It doesn't matter. This players still have to come together. I mean, you could only name 2 or 3 players that play in Morocco, and it would take a stretch to even realize that some of those guys are even Moroccan, with Hakimi and Ziyech, the only 2 that by name. But a phenomenal run so far. The semifinals, the quarterfinal games, I don't know how much you got to watch of all of them, but some entertaining matches. I'm sure I could do a whole podcast about the 17 card game between the Netherlands and Argentina. I'm sure we'll save that for another day, but quite an interesting Final Four.
Should have been a red card.
It should have been multiple. I'm sure that could have happened in there, but 2 great semifinals. Like you said, the prospect of quite an interesting final. I mean, again, either France gets in there with a chance to repeat, which will be great drama in itself, and then, whichever side comes from the other side, the matchup could be great. But I don't count out Morocco. I think everyone's going to say, oh, this, like a Final Four Cinderella team that makes that run and gets to that Final Four and makes this isn't. yes, Morocco doesn't have a clear, they don't have an Mbappe, they don't have an Antoine Griezmann, they don't have a Lionel Messi. But what they do have is a team that is composed and a team that digs in defensively, puts numbers behind the ball. They know when to attack. They know when to try to take advantage of their set pieces. They have some skill players in Ziyech and Hakimi that can put them in dangerous situations. So, and their goalkeeper's playing out of their mind. Bono has been playing absolutely out of his mind. And it's one thing if you know a goalkeeper, and you know John is a goalkeeper, when you see guys, lucky save here or there, ball off the posts, some misses by the other team, but he's been coming up huge with saves. It's not just been his defensive work and the other team missing opportunities. He's been coming up with a big save. So when you have that belief in the back and your goalkeeper's playing well, you've got every chance to win. And so I wouldn't count out Morocco. I wouldn't necessarily put any money on it if it came down to that type. I'm not sure if that's where my money would lean. But at the same time, it's been a fun ride and one of the more exciting World Cups I can say I've ever witnessed.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's been nail-biter games. There really hasn't been a game that you're just like, okay, well, that was, they've all been close. Obviously, a number of them went down to penalty shootouts, which we're going to talk about here in a second. Looking at this tournament, Argentina came in as a favorite, right? France came in as a favorite. England came in as a favorite. Obviously, Brazil came in as a favorite. They came in number one ranked team in the world. They lost. It's been very interesting. Croatia, I think is going to have the edge here against Argentina. I don't know if I really want to put Messi as an underdog, but I feel like just the way that they're playing, the way their goalkeeping is as well. That they're due, and as much as Argentina is due, but they're going to have their hands full here. And then you've got on the other side of that the Moroccans and France, and as you said, it really is set up for a Cinderella outcome for them. I still think they fall short, depending on who they'd play in the final. I think that if they were to play a Croatian team, they're hungry to win a World Cup, and I think it would be this year if the Moroccans find a way to get past France. I would love to see a Croatia-France finale. I would. It'd be a repeat.
Yeah, and I think it would be an entertaining match. I mean, we saw was it 4-2 in the final 4 years ago. Croatia's got a lot to prove, and for those that maybe aren't as familiar with the players and up and down their lineup, but just consistency throughout the lineup 1 through 11. And you have a player in the caliber of a Lionel Messi and a Luka Modric, who can just pull the strings in that midfield and really direct everything else going on and find Perisic and find other options going forward. And they've been very good. Again, one of the more consistent teams throughout the entire tournament, throughout qualifying. For a country that is so small, and the number of players and people in the country, let alone to be playing, and the way they are able to consistently perform at the world stage, whether it's at the Euros, whether it's in the World Cup. They remind me very much, they're like a Gonzaga of like a college basketball, right? Like the underdog, but everyone says they're good every year.
Always the 12th seed, man.
But then they always find the way to make a deep run, and maybe not, in the exact same way, but they're just there and they're knocking on the door. So again, it wouldn't surprise. I think we are in for a great semifinal tomorrow. I cannot wait to strap into that one. It's going to be an exciting match, and then Wednesday, the France-Morocco. I think France will get themselves in trouble if they overlook Morocco. I don't think they were. I think Didier Deschamps has the experience as a manager to say, listen, he coached most of these players into a World Cup victory 4 years ago, but he himself won a World Cup in '98 with France, so he has that experience and understanding to know what it takes to come through as a player, as a coach. He's been through those ups and downs, so I can only imagine that he will get that mindset right for that squad, so they won't overlook Morocco. Again, but two great, interesting matchups, and I think we're in for what potentially will be a great final, no matter who the teams are.
No question about that. So let's dive in here, Steve, to these penalty shootouts, and it's something that I wanted to talk about. I had a chance to talk earlier today with someone about this, and Fish is near and dear to our hearts. If you don't know who Sam Fisher is, well, you don't know anything. But Sam Fisher and I were talking about this and about the World Cup and about shootouts. And I equate I know it's not the same things exactly, but I equate a penalty shot to that of a free throw in basketball. And what I mean by that, in the sense of, is that yes, there's a goalkeeper who's trying to stop it, but if you are a player that knows how to put the ball where you want it, I feel pretty confident that you step up to that line 8 out of 10 times, you should be able to score. Lionel Messi should be scoring PKs 8 out of 10 times. He should be having 80% completion, or whatever you want to call that. And yes, you have a goalkeeper who is diving, but if you put it where they can't get it, then they're not going to save it. And because again, the goalkeeper is not supposed to save a penalty shot. As a former goalkeeper myself, I can tell you this: that when it came time for me to step to a line, I had nothing to lose because I was expected to get scored on. Right, so the thought process is, you're watching what happened with Brazil. Right, the final kick is off, wide open goal, hits off the post. Right, and Roberto Baggio, right, back in 1994, right, over the top in that game, or in the final, right, over the top, and not by a small amount, by a very large amount. Now, I understand that you're playing in front of your home, you're the world, and you have a lot on your shoulders. But these players, Messi included, all these players play in stadiums full of 60, 70, 80,000 fans, all yelling at them and calling them names. They're used to playing in those harsh environments. I don't know how players in Harry Kane stepping up in the World Cup on PK number 2 is not going to win. Again, I'm not talking about a goalkeeper making a phenomenal save, but you're missing the goal. Like, you're not even hitting the target.
Well, I do think, can't believe I'm going to say this, but I think there is such a fine margin, as someone who, like stood in front of many penalty kicks in training sessions and practice and games and those types of things. I took penalty kicks as well, and it doesn't take much to mishit that ball just a slight and put one over the top. I get it. Obviously, I'm talking about my skill level compared to a world-class player. They shouldn't be doing it. The problem, and I'm with you. I think you should be hitting the target. You should be just placing the ball. My problem with watching the penalty kicks is these guys, I feel like they psych themselves out.
Yeah.
Or they do too much in their prep. They're not running up to it naturally. Like, if you asked any world-class player and threw a ball out in front of them, 5 yards in front of them, and said, just go kick it into the goal, they'll just run up and bury it most times. But when you stop, and the referee's got to blow his whistle, and you do this little stop and stutter and shake and hop, and we do a little dance.
Chicago Shuffle, we'll call it.
It's not natural.
It's not.
And as much as you can practice it all you want that way, having to do that is never happening in the game. You're never doing that motion naturally in the flow of a game. So
why are they doing it then?
Because the players are convinced that whatever action they're taking in that lead up is going to confuse the goalkeeper in some way, shape. Convince the goalkeeper that he's going to act soon, give up something, show one way or the other. And it works for some guys. There are some guys that do it. Jorginho's been famous to do it at Chelsea and for Italy. Very famous with his big hop step. Bruno Fernandes, Paul Pogba in his extremely slow run up. But to me, when it comes to then these pressure situations, you have too many guys that, and I don't think Harry Kane did anything particularly.
He's when it comes to penalty shots, he is very effective.
He is, and he's pretty consistent with his run up and the way his approach. But to me, you saw some of the guys for Brazil taking crazy, approaches to the ball, and to me, played for plenty of coaches, played in plenty situations where we try penalty kicks all the time. You just got to step up there and place your best kick. There's no reason to mess around. There's no reason to try to get cute or get fancy with it. Step up there and pick a spot and just bury it.
Yeah.
And I can understand when guys try to hit it with their laces and when they try to bury the shot and they try to go up a little bit higher, and because the goalkeeper if you put it up top, they're never going to get it. It's just not going to happen.
No.
And these guys will miss, and it happens. So the misses can happen, and I can understand that, but you don't even have to get. You shouldn't even have to get to that point. Put it with the inside of your foot and just bend it right into the side netting. Like that's
to
me, like if you miss because you just tried to bend one to the post and you hit it off the post and you miss outside, I can live with that. I'm with you. I can't. I just don't understand how you go into striking a ball and trying to put all the power in the world behind it, knowing that you leave yourself a much bigger risk to do exactly what Harry Kane did.
Yeah.
And same time, he's going against his club goalkeeper, Hugo Lloris, who they spent the last 11 years together at Tottenham, right? So they know each other better than any, probably two combination of people left in this World Cup. So you had to imagine he's thinking in his head, does he think I'm going left, right? But you got to at least give yourself a chance to put it on frame.
Yeah. I mean, a rebound. I mean, anything. I mean, and to be fair, I understand that Harry Kane, he'd already taken one in that game. I almost feel like, Matt, and it sounds controversial to say this, but maybe give the ball to somebody else in that moment.
I was actually surprised. I mean, all right, so I know he is their pen taker.
Yeah.
So that's well established. When England gets a pen, he takes it in a one-off situation. However, to your point, he buries the first one, so you have that confidence that, hey, he's already scored one.
Yeah.
Let him score again. But because of the situation with him knowing the goalkeeper, I almost think having someone else take it might have been actually more beneficial. I was actually a little, again, obviously this isn't an Arsenal versus Tottenham type thing, but when the first penalty was called and Bukayo Saka drew the penalty, in my mind I was like, Bukayo should step up and take it because he takes him for Arsenal.
Yeah.
Step up and take it. He's earned it. I mean, he stepped up on the biggest stage in the Euros. Yeah, he missed the pen, but again, I understand why Harry Kane took it. I expected Harry Kane to take it. It's a tough situation because I think you'd get criticized if he doesn't take the second one and then he doesn't score. Then same saying, why aren't you putting the guy who already scored one back up there? But he just didn't do himself any favors by blowing it over. He hits the crossbar, goalkeeper makes a save. I think more people can live with the miss. But when you blast it, over the bar and into Dubai, I mean it's just a bit much. So. Football's not coming home.
No, I just when I look at what's in the body of work and you see it not only at this level, you see it at all levels. I mean, penalty shootouts are, I think it's fair to say, are probably the least practiced or trained upon thing that any team is going to do. I mean, because for the better part of any chunk of a season, there is no penalty shootout to be had, right? So when you start to even think about penalty shootouts, it's typically when you're in a moment of your season when those things are about to happen. So you start to put more emphasis on that. I just don't think. I mean, it's one thing to be able to sit in practice. Here's a ball and take 20 PKs and hit your targets. It's another thing to face it in a competitive moment where a game is on the line, right? To move forward into a round, the semifinals is on your back and on your shoulders, or to tie up a game. I mean, there's a lot to be said about that moment, and it's something that, like, for me, when I was training my team, we twice a week, we never got into a shootout, so it didn't matter. But had we gotten into a shootout, I can tell you that my team would have been prepared, because twice a week during the entire season, every single one of our players on our team would step up and take a penalty shot. All 25 players or 20 players on our roster would step up, and we'd separate both teams, 12 and 12, wherever it was, and it wasn't like round. It was just each person take a shot, and if you missed, goalie makes a save, you missed the frame, everyone was running.
Yep.
Right? And so you could have a day where only 5 sprints happened because there were 5 misses out of 24 kicks. Or you had a day where there were 24 sprints. And they weren't some days it was 100-yard suicide. You're going all the way down, coming back.
Yep.
Some days it was a 50-yard suicide. But we did it twice a week for the entire season. And as we got closer towards the playoffs, it was more like 3 times a week. But there was something on the line. It wasn't like you were just taking your penalty shot and you were going on your way. No, you were literally in a competitive moment where, it was between you having to sprint and not. And while that might seem like a whole lot of nothing, it prepared our team for the event. And if we had to face it, these guys knew exactly where they were going to go. And it really helped prepare them for that potentiality of a penalty shootout in a playoff match.
Well, in talking about that preparation, what were your thoughts about how in the situation where we saw Brazil lose in their quarterfinal matchup, and Neymar never even got to shoot because he was their designated 5th shooter.
The anchor.
Well, I guess they don't have to declare an order anymore, but
they don't.
Clearly
He
was because he had not shot yet. And then on the reverse, you see a squad. Argentina walks out, and Messi's the first penalty taker. What are your thoughts on do you prefer? Do you think is it best to put that the established best penalty kick taker first to establish a rhythm and say, hey, we're going to score, or do you think it's best to leave your one of your considered best penalty takers towards the end?
So for me, the way I always set up is my best kicker was always the first. Our 4th kicker, 4th best, was always in that 2nd spot, and then we would work our second best kicker was always the last, the anchor. The reason why 1 is confidence, right? Stepping up to that moment, you want your best player to put that ball in. It eases everyone's, I think, peace of mind in regards to, because a goalie makes a big save or the ball is missed. Now the player coming up behind them is feeling that pressure to get it in. And depending upon what happened, and again, keeping this in mind, if you are the first team to shoot, that is a very different spot than as if you are the second team to shoot, because sometimes as a coach, depending upon, and again, this is different because you have to play with the players that are on the field in the World Cup. So the 11 players that were on the pitch at the end of the game, they're the only 11 players you could use.
Correct. Yeah.
Now,
in
high school,
you have the whole roster.
You could use the whole roster.
Yep.
You could pull as long as the guy is rostered and he had a uniform, he could step on. So there's a lot of different things, good and bads about that. So depending upon if you were the one to take the first kick, you might adjust the way you do things too in your lineup if the other team misses their first shot, right? So some things would change in that regard. But for me, it was always our best kicker always went first. I just didn't like the idea of having to your best player waiting in the wings, and not to mention they were struggling throughout that entire shootout. So I don't know if in the World Cup you have to give them the list at the beginning of it.
No, anymore, no.
No,
you used to have to give a list now.
So I mean, Neymar, go get out there. You're 3 now. You're 3. Go get your 3. I don't know why that didn't happen. And again, that could come down to level of comfort too, right? You tell a player, and I would imagine that these players know, if you're on the pitch at the end of the match, you 5 players, you are taking the kicks, and this is the order you're taking them in. And if you walk up to a Neymar and who's supposed to be your anchor, and now you're like, okay, well, you're going to be 3rd, that could screw up his mindset too.
Yeah, and I think there's two trains of thought to it, and I'm with you. I have a hard time. I would have a hard time as a manager living with the fact that I knew that my best penalty kick taker potentially may not shoot. And so yeah, put that best shooter out there. Get that early goal in the shootout, regardless if it may end up helping or not. At least that you put your best shooters out there first, and then in likewise, do you think that if as a coach, did you prefer to shoot first or shoot second? Because the statistics in the last several years, used to lean towards shooting second was the best. Knowing they experimented with the ABBA format, or the back-to-back, even because they felt that it was potentially too advantageous. But then, or something I heard during one of the recent broadcasts was that in X amount of the last two major tournaments, the Euros and the World Cup, the team that's shooting first has had a better success rate to advance. At that level, I'm not sure it matters all that much, but I just wanted to get your thoughts about first or second, because I definitely certainly have my thoughts. But
well, the reality is that if you're the second team shooting, you have some idea of what the future looks like.
That's what I've always
a little bit.
thought.
So
At least
I
you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, because you could. Okay, we got to save there. They're almost like you're taking a deep breath. Because again, a lot of this comes down to, and that's why even when I compared these shootouts to taking free throws, even though you sit in a gym all day long and you can take 1,000 free throws, when you step to the line in NCAA Final Four, with the next basket, ties the game. You're 1-1 with a chance maybe to go up by 1 point. I mean, you have this crowd of people, you have all this stuff, the college, all these things are racing through your mind. It doesn't matter. How much training you've had. It all comes down to the perseverance that you have in that moment to take away all the distractions and just do your job, right? So whether you're going first or second in the whole scheme of things, it doesn't matter, because if the 5 shooters that you select step up and bury it, well, at least the worst case scenario is you move on to one more round, right?
Yep.
But that's the problem, right? The problem is that we're not getting to the 5th kicker. Where as it happened, Croatia's goalkeeper might as well be a garage door, right? I mean, it's all the memes and gifs I saw in regards to his diving saves. Where a garage door would have stopped. It was just funny watching those TikToks. But again, we always tried to go second, and again, we never had a chance to go second, right? We didn't even do it. I mean, whenever we talked about, hey, would you want to go first or second? It was always, because I remember there were games, we were 10 seconds away from a shootout and we got scored on. So, we're in that moment talking about it with my assistants, and they're like, oh, okay, well, we got scored on, so never mind. Oops, no PKs for us. But I think that, I think going second, it does give you, I think, a mental advantage.
Yeah, and
I mean, going if you're the kicking team, if you're the kicking team, again, going first too, as a goalkeeper was different for me too, right? Because I wanted our team to be shooting second, because I wanted the opportunity to stop the
first shot,
set
the tone from a defensive. But same way, I think it's probably the goalkeeper in us both that I just always felt that, listen, if you knew you were shooting second. Yes, you. It's not about knowing you have to score. You have to score all of them. That should always be the goal. You want to score all 5. So, it's more or less that, hey, if the other team missed, it almost was like a little bit of relief that say, hey, you could, take a chance. Because they already missed one. So if you miss, then we're still square. So, I've always been in favor of shooting second, but I never understood I mean, I guess I understand the mindset of the other. I just, I guess, never would have, if I were in a coach in that situation, would never, take that side of it. But that's not up to me. I'm usually the guy holding the whistle, not making those decisions. So.
If I remember correctly, I'm looking here. At our highlights here from the Troy High versus Rochester Adams game, and in that game, I believe. Rochester Adams, they were the first ones to kick. They won that game. Yep. If I go back and we had a few PKs that we had to deal with. Berkeley versus Troy High, that one, Berkeley shot second, I believe, because it came down to a winning kick. Let me take a look here. I want to make sure I get this right. So let's take a look here. Who shot first? I always get past it. So let's see. Oh, one more. Here we go. Okay, so it looks like Berkeley. Berkeley stepped up. So Berkeley was the first one. Troy was the second, and they won it. So, I mean, 50-50 right there in those 2 PKs, right?
Yeah,
so,
and I don't think, again, if you probably take the number of shootouts that have happened in major tournaments and really break them down, I'm sure it's not 50-50, but I'm sure it's a slight 53-47 one way or the other. And, you take the right sample size, you can make the data look any way you want. I just think you have to have the confidence in the players, and you have the players to go shoot, and you got to me, make sure you put them in the right order where you're putting out your better players first. But
no question. So, let's talk here a little bit. We're not going to go to commercial. We're going to finish this up here. We just talked obviously about these penalty shots in the World Cup. But last week, Noah Yee took home the goal of the year. He had the total vote count last week for the goal of the year finale was 48,000 votes in total. That day alone, we had over 28,000 visitors to our website. So a phenomenal day and a wrap up. Over 250,000 votes in total during that time period. 80,000 visitors to our website. I believe Noah actually ended up with 21,000 votes. I'm sorry, he had 24,000 votes on that day. So it's just a phenomenal finish. Noah will actually join us here next week on the show. He was going to try and join us here today, just because of scheduling, was unable to get here. So we'll meet with him here next week. So that was a really, really cool thing for him. And now underway right now is the save of the year. Jack Rogers and George Hildebrandt right now. George Hildebrandt from Troy High, Jack Rogers from Catholic Central. Jack Rogers had a phenomenal save against Rockford, that toe save that went up and over. And George Hildebrandt, his diving save gave them the district title over Berkeley High School on that shot from Andre Billows, and that's why he was selected for that one. But that matchup's going on right now on our website at MichiganSoccerNetwork.com. Voting here ends tonight at 11:45 p.m.
Get your votes in.
And we'll have a new vote here, a new tally here tomorrow. Tomorrow's matchup, it's already set up on our website, not our website, but it's already set up. I believe. Let's take a look here. I want to get it right. You never want to get it wrong. Sometimes I say things and get it wrong, so want to get it right. Oops. It's Bora. I'm sorry. So it's Bora Akon, and go back here. Wow, geez, struggling with the computer today. But Bora Akon is taking on Seth Davidson from Berkeley. So that's tomorrow's matchup. Later this week, Jeremiah Johnson from De La Salle with Joseph Farah from Seaholm, and then Jude Thomas and Griffin McGee here on Thursday. Then on Friday, John Kuhn versus Tegan Gums. That's a matchup of the state finals right there. Rochester Adams took on Rockford in the state finals for Division I. Andrew Graciosi versus Toby Archer from Lake Orion. Carter McMahon from Utica High School taking on Utica Henry Ford II. Mark Manhart. And then Groves Hugo Bonifond taking on University of Liggett's Langston Evans in the final matchup of this 16 saves here for Save of the Year. So MichiganSoccerNetwork.com. Every single day you can vote as much as you possibly want. Yes, there's just one caveat to that. Every time you vote, it directs you to our YouTube channel. And you're going to have to hit the back button to go back and vote again. There's no way around that. Today we earned 20 subscribers by doing that. So I'm not going to stop it, man. I'm not.
Do it.
if you notice, we have not one time today said subscribe.
Till right now.
So
click that button. Go to YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps support us. So if you could do that, we'd really appreciate it.
Well, that we will. Well, that'll do it here for us on MSN Weekly here this week. We appreciate you stopping along or watching us here on demand. Either way, we do appreciate a lot of great shows here coming up here in the new year. The Journey, where we start recording here later this week. We've got a brand new show coming called Nationals Monthly. We'll talk more about that here in the coming weeks. The Roundtable, the offseason, a referee podcast, and so much more. So we're excited about that, and we're going to get out of here now. So, Steve, any final thoughts?
Just excited for there's only 4 matches left in this World Cup, 2 semifinals, a third place game, and the championship on Sunday, and couldn't be more excited for these last 4 games.
Me too. Tomorrow and Wednesday, and then Saturday and Sunday. So just 4 more games here, and then that's it. And then we're off to Christmas or in the holiday season. So either way, for Steve Besk, I'm Jonathan Turner. We appreciate you stopping by here on the Michigan Soccer Network and MSN Weekly. We'll be back here next Monday, the 19th. Noah Yee and hopefully a couple other guests, and maybe Dan Sticker will be back as well. We'll let you know. Either way, have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next time for more soccer right here on the Michigan Soccer Network.
I watch soccer on the Michigan Soccer Network.
I watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
لا تنسون تتابعونا على Michigan Soccer Network.
I watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
I like to watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
I watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
Me gusta mirar fútbol en Michigan Soccer Network.
I watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
I love watching soccer on the Michigan Soccer Network.
Back to Vitriol. He'll take a shot and he'll bear it! And then he'll fire it from Billows and it'll go in! Now Worrell has a good cutback from him. He'll fire one, and that's gonna go in! Oh, and both goals so far. He'll fire one, and that's a wonderful save, Killerney. That's missed. Oh, it's Stone! In the... He'll fire one now from distance, and that is in! What a strike by Ben Maher!